Sorry, guys. I did it again. I forgot I had my headphones on. But anyway, hello, guys. I am back for another video. Today we are doing my 2011 list, and this one was a bit easier to make. It's 8 at least. I was at least able. Like 2010 just was really looking back. Like God, that was a weak year. At least 2011, I was able to come up with a few. So we'll be doing this tomorrow. Saw 3. I'm interested to see how I feel about that, but 2011 was a pretty fun year. I remember I saw a couple of movies that year. There was some like that movie Paul. I did see that year. Granted, it's Seth Rogen, but I like it. It didn't make the list though, just because it wasn't like one I love. But overall, 2011, we're getting into like the 2010s now. So I do think, unfortunately, when I feel like we get into later 2010s, I think we're not gonna be in the days of 84, 87, where I almost like had like 13 almost. Like I could, like, there was so much those years. I think probably I gotta be lucky if we're gonna do 10. I think 2012, I did make the list yesterday for 2012. And I will say, 2012 one was actually pretty easy to make. I was able to actually come up with 10 for that one. 2012 I felt like had some good ones. So, but because this was the time when like that superhero, because in the 2010s, the superhero like movie just started kind of taking over everything. Granted, not at this time because the MCU was still in its infancy. Oh, you also had Thor, the first Thor this year, which also didn't make the list. Would have made it, but I don't think it's as good. I don't think it's as good as Captain America: First Avenger, which is actually going to be on the list. So I do have that on here, but I just but yeah, the MCU is, but like, definitely when we get into like, let's say like 20, I would say like 15, 16, that's when like that superhero just was dominating everything. So anyway, let's get into 2011. My number 10, oh 8, sorry, is Real Steel. Real Steel was an interesting one. I didn't see this one in theaters. I remember seeing a trailer for it. I was kind of interested in what it was about. This is, this movie set in about a former boxer who basically becomes a coach for a robot named Charlie. Not Charlie, Ambush. Ambush is the robot. Charlie's the main character. And it's a great feel-good story, about a father getting, close to his, basically, son he hasn't seen in a while. It is a little bit sad, because his ex-girlfriend died. There is a little bit of, so it is a sad movie, but it is a feel-good story, genuinely. Also, like, it's Rocky with robots, or Rock'em Sock'em Robots if they did a movie. Like, that is how you do. You don't need to do a literal Rock'em Sock'em robot movie. Just, you have this. But it's also Rocky with robots, where Ambush gets in fights with other robots. And I just love the design, especially of the main one he fights in the end. But basically, even though he doesn't beat Zeus, he pretty much nearly kills him, which makes the story, it's a genuine feel-good story, though. Just great characters. This will actually be one I will review at some point. I don't know when, but at some point I will review, because it's genuinely a feel-good movie. I mean, that's all I can really say. I love the design of the other robots, like I mentioned, and yeah, it's just a feel-good story. That's all I can really say. So that's my number 8. My number 7 is the Thing prequel. And this is one I should have reviewed forever ago. I was originally going to review it around the time when I reviewed the 82 film. I was gonna say the original. I know there's one in the 50s. I've actually never seen that. I'll probably go back at some point and review the original 50s one, Thing from Another World. Um, but the 82 film is one of my favorite films of all time. Like, it's almost up there with Alien for me. But this one, I was supposed to review it around the time I reviewed that one, and I just didn't. I don't know what happened. I think I remember filming a review for it, and then something happened, and I had to scrap it, and I just never went back to it. We will review it at some point, because I actually do want to discuss this film. But overall, I like this movie. It has very big problems. Two big problems which a lot of people point out. I understand one of the problems being the CGI holds it back for people like not being a good movie, because one of the things about the 82 film is how practical the effects were, and just how timeless those effects age, even though it was from 1982. And then you have the effects in this just and then also for me personally, some of the way that the creature would, like, there was the scene where it transformed into like bugs from the dude's hand. Like, that didn't happen, because why didn't it never do it in the 82 movie? Like, you have it do things that it never did in later on. But I do think there were still some genuinely good characters. I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead in this. Joel Edgerton is good. And it does try, and I do love the way it does tie back to the original, especially towards the end. The way it ties to the 82 film. So I mostly like it, but I do agree it does have problems. It very much, and then there's the scene where they try to, I think it's with the teeth, so they could test how to get the creature. They should have never did that scene. That was like I'm gonna be honest, a shit attempt at trying to do the blood test scene from the original. I'm just gonna keep saying original. Fuck it, from the original 82 movie, and it makes no sense, because you're never gonna get that level of tension and suspense, and when you try to, it just comes off as a bad attempt at it. They should have never did that scene. You didn't need to do a test scene. Just, it makes no sense. That I get it, that, because it was Mary Elizabeth Winstead who figured it out, but I still wouldn't have did that. I think that was dumb. I don't know if they were trying to make it show like maybe why it was unsuccessful, but they already did that in the 82 movie. They didn't need to do that again, because it just, you're never gonna match that level of tension at all. It just, in that from that blood test scene. So it just, don't do a bad attempt at it. But aside from that, I mostly like it. I do like the final act, and I do like some of the creature moments. I do like the moment when it does break out. Granted, the CGI is just, and we know the story was they actually originally did do it in practical, but the studio forced the CGI. So, but overall, I still think it's a decent movie. That's why I have it a little bit lower, but I still have fun with it, and we will talk about it, because I do want to talk about it more in detail. But my number 6, now we're on number 6. Sorry about this, guy. So my number 6 is Immortals. This is a little bit of a more unknown film. Talk about like the Greek gods. It has the Minotaur, you have Theseus. For me, it's more the cast. You have Henry Cavill, John Hurt, fucking Mickey Rourke as the villain. It's a fucking awesome movie. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Obviously, this was at that time when every movie was trying to be kind of like 300, but it didn't bother me. I thought it still did a good job at it. It still had cool visuals. Henry was great as Theseus, and the Minotaur fight was great. The final fight was awesome, and I think they did a good job with with the obviously it's not going to be fully accurate Greek lore, but I did think it was a nice take on it, and honestly, I kind of do miss movies like this where we do have like movies about like the Greek culture every now and then. We don't really get those anymore, and if we do, it's like fucking they don't do it accurately because we got to race swap everybody. You just gotta like, I guess quick sidebar. I'm over, and I might actually just do a video on this as a separate topic, but I'm tired of the race swapping in like fantasy stories. Like, I don't, or just, I don't care how racist it sounds. I'm black, and I'm gonna fucking say it. I don't need a random black person in like a movie that's supposed to be in medieval Europe or, ancient Greece. They don't do that. You notice, right? With movies that are about ancient China, you don't see a random black person thrown in there. And I'm fine with that because it's ancient China. In these times, there was no people weren't traveling like that. So I'm sorry. There was not a lot of black people in ancient Europe or ancient Greece. So I'm gonna be honest, it turns me off when I see that. It's one of the reasons why we rarely get these stories that we do. If they have to always do that, we gotta throw a black person in this movie. I mean, I kind of mentioned it in my last Voyage of the Meter. Is the same thing. Like, why can't we just, if it's a movie that's ancient England, even like, even early like Victorian England, there would not be a lot of black people there. I don't need a random black person in it just because like I feel I don't need to be represented in those movies. Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying there were no black people at those times, but most of the time it wasn't. If it's ancient Europe, it's gonna be mainly white people. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it is in these movies. It'd be like you're doing a movie in ancient Africa. There's gonna be a lot of Africans. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, just keep it accurate to the times. One of the reasons I had fun with this movie, it was just an accurate movie. So anyway, but yeah, little sidebar there. But yeah, Mortals is an awesome movie. Henry Cavill. This is actually probably why Henry Cavill got obviously picked to play Superman. Was probably this movie, just because I thought he killed it as Theseus. And no, I didn't see this in theaters. I saw this a little bit later. I wish I saw it in theaters though. I think this would have been a fun theater experience. And Mickey Rourke was an awesome fucking villain. So that's my number 6. Now my number 5. This was one I'll admit the movie has issues more noticeably now for me, but at the time I was more hyped for it because this was my first Scream movie in theaters. And my number 4 is Scream 4. 5 is Scream 4. And I'm gonna be honest, it has aged a little poorly for me, like in the sense of I noticed way more issues. I do not like the filter it's shot in. I'm just gonna be honest, it's distracting. It looks ugly to look at. I'm gonna be honest. Of the Scream movies, for me, there's only 4. This is the last one because 5 is an absolute shit storm, trash fire. 6 is all right. The ending ruins it, but it's kind of pointless now because Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera are gone. So that whole thing was dumb anyway. So it makes it even worse that they went that direction. But anyway. Scream 4 though, like this, the visuals. I don't like that filter they shot it in. It's ugly to look at. Of the main 4 movies, it's the ugliest to look at for me. I think Emma Roberts is not good in it. I think she's fine with pre-reveal. She's fine, and the initial reveal was okay, but that's because Charlie was there to kind of help her. And then the scene where she like fucked herself up worked because she looked crazy as fuck because she wasn't talking. She's just being a crazy bitch, beating herself up. But the moment that final act in the hospital is, in general, I don't like it. It's so over the top. Her acting in that is awful. I'm sorry. It's not good in it. It's so over the top. Like, I can't take her seriously as a killer. Like, I do have problems with it. But overall, I still mostly think it's good. And I was definitely hyped at the time. This was my first Scream movie in theaters. I didn't get to experience fucking California. Anyway, I did like the opening. I do love the opening. Even with like the fake outs, but not getting to experienced the first three in theaters, so I was definitely hyped to see this one. And I do love that opening. I think, like I said, like the real opening too was done well, and I thought the call scene was great. Sydney, I love the evolution of her character. Writing a book, becoming a book writer, trying to overcome, and the initial Olivia. One thing they did, this one does better, is it definitely than three, is it brought the violence back, because three, obviously it's not their fault. It was at the timing, because Columbine just happened, so they had to tone down the violence. But this one they brought it back. I mean, that Olivia kill where you see like her guts all out, like they definitely brought it back, and some of the call scenes were actually very well done. Um, and I think it's mostly a good movie. I just think it gets a little bit ruined with some of the camera filters. If they had just, because originally Wes Craven actually wanted to end the movie at the party scene after the reveal um of Jill, but the problem was for him, do it for five, but I guess the studio just forced it or something like that, so they decided to go that route with it, and unfortunately, you get kind of not a. But I do. It does work though when Sydney kills Jill. It does work as like the ending of the franchise for me. You know, like that's to me where it ends. So. But overall, yeah, Scream 4 is decent. It just has its problems, but I still have it very high up. More for it was one of my favorite theater experiences, especially that year. So that's my number 5. My number 4 is the first Captain America movie, Captain America: The First Avenger. I have this really high up because I actually really love this movie. I'm one of the few that I know at the time Winter Soldier is definitely a way better movie. It's like I'm not saying this movie's on the quality of the first Star Wars movie, but it's like the first Star Wars movie, then it's like Empire Strikes Back, where Empire's like a big step up. That's kind of how I look at this one. But I still really love this one. I love the story. Steve becoming the scene where he lands on the grenade, what he wants to become a soldier, and I love his friendship with Bucky, and fucking Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. One of my favorite Hugo Weaving roles. I mean, I still prefer him as Agent Smith, but I do really love him as Red Skull. I think it is an iconic. He's like, especially to the character. I've read a couple of Captain America comics as a kid, and he's definitely like very accurate to Red Skull. Tommy Lee Jones is great in this too. Haley Atwell's great. I love the way they portray like the 40s and the stuff. Even just the whole montage of when he first becomes Captain America, and he does his first mission, and yeah, it's just an all around great movie. This is at the time when the MCU wasn't just samey; they were all trying to tell this was like a period piece. This wasn't just generic superhero story, and it wasn't like a world ending event kind of story either. Really, it was just a Captain America story. It was Captain America versus Red Skull. They kept it simple. So it's one of the reasons I do love it, and obviously the whole setup to Winter Soldier towards the end, losing Bucky, I really love it, and obviously the great ending that sets up the first Avengers movie, which I'm going to spoil right now, is not going to be in my 2012 list. It was a fun theater experience. I think that movie, for me, on popular opinion, it ages poorly, very poor. Of like that original, it ages very poorly for me. There's good parts in it. There's some good character stuff in it. But it just isn't. I think the final fight isn't that great. I think the middle portion just doesn't do it for me. I think, honestly, Infinity War is probably the best Avengers movie of the 4 of them. Endgame is probably the worst, but or Endgame tied is either Endgame or Age of Ultron tied for me as some of the worst. Yeah, but yeah, the first Avengers movie just doesn't age well. But yeah, back to this one. I just love that it was a solid story and just solo story. And that's what we needed more of in the MCU is that like it's that's one of the reasons I do prefer like that old MCU, because it was telling its own story. And yeah, you're gonna give more props to Hugo Weaving as Red. He was so fucking good. He was that character. The dialogue, back and forth with fucking Cap was great. Like it's like straight out of the comics. I actually liked Cap's suit here. I preferred this. I hated his Avengers suit. I'm happy they kind of changed it later on because, to be honest, I did not like his suit in Avengers. I prefer this. This was like it kind of like it looks like retro Cap, but it still looks modernized. And yeah, if you're hearing water, it's starting to very much rain over here. So sorry about that. But my number 3 is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This movie to me is a great modern take on the Planet of the Apes story, and the title says itself. It's the Rise. James Franco's great in it, and John Lithgow, and then Brian Cox, and then obviously when Caesar rises up and the scenes where the apes rise up is some of the greatest fucking cinematography ever. I'm actually gonna eventually, probably when we get closer to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I'm gonna review definitely those 3 movies. I should. I think I reviewed the second one at the time because I saw it in theaters and I was doing YouTube. But I'm gonna re-review it. That was early me. I definitely want to give a different take on it now. So I mean, I still think that it's probably my favorite of the 3. Though I don't blame people who say this one's the best. I do love like the simplicity of it, the major, and then the way I think it does have. It's one of the few stories that does criticize humanity, but doesn't just feel like it's shitting on humanity like like the Avatar movies do, where there's no like black. It's all black and white, no nuance, just no shades. It's all just humans suck, and that's it. And there's no there's no nuance to it. There's no at least this one is that. Like, yeah, there's good humans, but there's also bad ones, and when they raise up and start killing everybody and they all take over. And I do love the relationship between him and Caesar, Will and Caesar. I do love that. And then the virus spreads, man. That ending is so fucking dark, and it's a great one. I'm definitely cannot wait to. I'm probably just gonna watch them for the fuck of it soon. I'll definitely I'm gonna review them though when we get closer to King of the Planet of the Apes, which is in May. So maybe a little bit like start of May, we'll get into those movies. So but yeah, that's what we're gonna do. My number 2 is X-Men First Class, which I reviewed a few weeks ago. So I'm not gonna talk about it too long since I reviewed it not too long ago. I love this one. This was one they brought in characters that we haven't really seen. Like they brought in Havoc, they brought in fucking Sebastian Shaw. He was a great villain. And Kevin Bacon of all people. You wouldn't think because he's never really done superhero movies, and for him to be now I consider him personally one of the best villains in a superhero film. Bringing in Moira McTaggart, Emma Frost, the Hellfire Club. They brought in a lot of these elements we didn't really get to see in the movies, and it was cool to see that in this, and just the mutants, the way they handled mutants, and that story was a great period piece too. I think it's another one of those where it's set in the '60s and the formation of the X-Men, the Magneto scene with the when he was hunting down the people who killed his mom, and he's hunting Sebastian Shaw in that final face-off, and then when he finally takes Shaw's helmet, and he's like, "No, I agree with you. You killed my mother," and then he goes full on the Magneto we know in the end. It's so good. Michael Fassbender, in my opinion, he's up there at Ian McKellen as Magneto for me. He is so fucking good. He's what carried those movies, in my opinion. James McAvoy was great as Professor X too. And I think they really showcased their friendship well in this one. And yeah, I just overall love this movie. Great cast. This is a nice X-Men movie to get after shitty X3. And I guess for some people, yeah, because Origins is also a bet after X3. So it was like, okay, finally, you're kind of getting back on track with the X-Men movies. So overall, I really love this one. And yeah, but at number 1 of 2011 The Raid Redemption. This movie, I was amazed when I first saw this, man. This was one of those, I just was amazed with the choreography. And it's just an Indonesian, it's not an American movie. And it's just some of the simple premises. This group of, Officer Rama and his squad have to go break into this building, which is owned by um, Tama, and Tama's men. And basically, they have to survive. That's pretty much the movie. They have to survive in this building, so they have no backup, and a lot of his Tama's men, because they already knew they were coming, start just killing a lot of these cops, and they have to survive. And man, the fight with Officer Rama, though, with many of Tama's men, is some of the greatest shit. When he's just walking through and he's just starting a fight, and Tama's main man, hold on, I'm trying to find the name. He was Mad Dog. He's like Tama's main man, and when he fights, because we also get a reveal that Rama's brother, Andy, is there, and yeah, and it's a great fucking film. I had fun reviewing it. It's such a good one. I'm gonna be honest, I do not like Raid 2, really. It has good fights. I think the story is just weaker to me. I prefer the first one. And the simplicity, and even when one of the officers, his main commanding officer, we revealed that the main guy who runs it, they called for no backup, and actually is a dirty cop too, and he ends up killing Tama, but then he tries to kill himself and he can't, so he gets arrested. And yeah, it's a great film, man. Awesome time. I'm gonna cut it a little early, guys. It's heavy rain. I know this is the heavy water drops sound annoying, so I'm gonna call it here. 2011 was a pretty fun year to make, so I definitely can't wait for 2012. I actually was able to get 10 for that one. 2012 was a pretty good year, so tomorrow I will be reviewing Saw 3, and yeah, that's about it. All right, guys. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all later.